All right, here we go. Welcome into the Stone Shield Show. My name is Stone Shields. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us here this morning on a Thursday. No Reed Mouse today. He is out today and tomorrow. He's also out next week there as well. So we'll see as far as our schedule goes. We probably will bump it up and we'll go in the 10 o'clock slot. Maybe we'll have a 2-hour show there from time to time, but we stayed in the 11 o'clock slot here today. We do have a guest coming up, Scott Springer of the Inquirer. He's going to stop by. We're going to talk UC hoops. He's coming at 11:30, so for today, we decided to stay in the 11 o'clock slot, but be on the lookout on our social media. We might bump up for tomorrow's show between 10 and 11. So Reed, he's out for a couple of days. Then he is heading down to Florida, but then he will be back after that, and certainly looking forward to having Reed Mouse back on off the bench. But I'm going to hold it down here over the course of the next few days and into next week and into Thanksgiving. And we got plenty of stuff to talk about here on the show. Appreciate everyone, as always, for hanging out. Like I said, Scott Springer of the Inquirer, Cincinnati.com. He's going to stop by in about 30 minutes, and we're going to talk UC hoops. Bearcats play Louisville at the Heritage Bank Center tomorrow evening, 6:30. And, you look at that matchup on paper, it seems pretty one-sided. But we'll see exactly if UC can stay in the game, hang in there, potentially keep it close late, and have an opportunity to pull off a huge upset win. Not at Fifth Third, but still in the city of Cincinnati. So hopefully, of course, people can show up and show out for that game. There's been a lot made of, they're not selling a ton of tickets, and the tickets that they are selling are a bit overpriced. Obviously, there is a football game that'll be played, a high school football game at Paycor Stadium on Friday, but certainly hope the Cincinnati faithful can show out for that game because it's Cincinnati-Louisville. Louisville's a top 10 team in the country. UC, obviously, they have high expectations that they're going to be able to get some things cleaned up here, and hopefully can, ultimately get back in the tournament, and it would start with a huge win like this. But looking forward to that conversation with Scott Springer. That's coming up in about 30 minutes. We got to talk Joe Burrow. He practiced in full yesterday, was doing the 11-on-11 stuff with the Cincinnati Bengals at practice. Zach Taylor, he was on 700 WLW this morning with our friend Tom Brenneman, and, very hesitant to sit out there and say, you know what, he's going to start. He's going to be our guy on Sunday, but it seems like the door is very much open. Talking with some people around the team, some people think, yep, he's going to play. Others think, it's probably going to be at least Thanksgiving until we see him out there on the field. But we'll talk about that. I'll have my thoughts on that as we begin today's show. Also, great night of college basketball last night. A couple of upsets. UConn at home in Stores. They fall to Arizona. And, start buying that Arizona Wildcats stock if you haven't done so already. They start 3 freshmen. They play 4 of them. And they went into Stores, Connecticut, and not rattled whatsoever. Obviously, Jaden Bradley, he's got a lot of experience. He's been there for a couple of years. He dropped 20-plus points in the game, and when you have him combined with those freshmen, Lloyd doing a tremendous job coaching them, they look like a team that could potentially win the national title. So if you haven't already, buy that Arizona Wildcat stock. UConn, without their leading scorer, Terrace Reed, I'm not too worried about UConn. They're still going to be good, but that's a heck of a statement to go into Stores and pick up a big-time win. Also, another upset, the Alabama Crimson Tide. They take down Brad Underwood and Illinois. That was played at the United Center in Chicago, and Alabama's kind of had a gauntlet here to start the year, and it was certainly a difficult game at home against Purdue. They lost. How would they respond? They went to Illinois. They played really, really well. Could have separated themselves there at the end, but they made enough clutch plays late to pull it out, get a victory, and we'll talk about that game as well. LeBaron Philon kind of putting people on notice, letting everybody know that he probably will be a lottery pick at the draft. Shedeur Sanders. He's starting for the Cleveland Browns. 5th-round pick, of course. Lots of hype. I don't know if there's ever been a 5th-round pick that's been exactly as hyped, certainly as Shedeur Sanders has. Obviously, that comes a lot with his father, Deion Sanders, but he's going to get the start. And for him, couldn't really ask for much more, right? Because you're playing against Las Vegas, and obviously the Raiders aren't very good. The Raiders are 4-point favorites last I looked in this game, but it'll be interesting to see how Shedeur plays because he got in, of course, at the game last week against Baltimore. Did not really go well. Didn't complete many passes, but he looked kind of comfortable, I guess, to say the least, and he's going to get an opportunity here as a rookie. So we'll talk about that. Also, Michael Penix Jr., he's done for the year, partially tore his ACL. It's Kirk Cousins' time in Atlanta. And all those people out there say, the 2024 quarterback class, it's the greatest thing ever. Well, J.J. McCarthy, he's not good. All right, Michael Penix, we were worried about him staying healthy. I don't even know if he was playing that well before he got hurt. He's done for the year. Jaden Daniels, great rookie year. Again, could he stay healthy? He's out. all of a sudden you look at that class, it's like, well, maybe it's not the greatest thing in the whole entire world. We'll talk about that there as well. Also, Kyle Schwarber, he spoke to some members of the Cincinnati media. Seg Dennison of 700 WLW was able to ask him some questions. I believe it was at a Middletown event. Schwarber, of course, went to Middletown High School. And there was a couple minutes there where it's like, whoa, Kyle Schwarber would love to be a Cincinnati Red. He made that pretty clear, in my opinion. And we'll see if the Reds can, put together all the money it will take to land Kyle Schwarber. But based on his comments last night, it was pretty evident that he's got some serious interest in suiting it up for the Cincinnati Reds. All right, Scott Springer, about 25 minutes. Make sure you stick around for that. Of the Inquirer, Cincinnati.com. We'll talk Cincinnati Bearcats basketball. They got a big one on Friday against Louisville. But let's start here with Joe Burrow. Look, Burrow, obviously, he went down in the Week 2 game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And as a Bengals fan, that's the worst possible thing, right? You can give up 50 points. Yeah, that's no good. Yeah, you have dysfunction top to bottom in the organization. Yeah, you can get mad at Zach Taylor, Duke Tobin, Mike Brown, the Blackburn family, all those people. That's fine. But when 9 goes down, there's not a worse feeling when it comes to being a Cincinnati Bengal fan. And obviously, they've tried to navigate it. It hasn't worked very well, right? You won the game where he got hurt. Jake Browning somehow was able to win that game against Jacksonville, but they kind of donated that game a little bit to you. And then as the weeks have gone on, you've only won one game. And it was a shootout on Thursday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, you've done some good things offensively. Obviously, you can't put last week's game under that category there, but the offense isn't the reason you've lost some games. But Burrow, of course, people were saying Thanksgiving, Monday night or Sunday Night Football, or Thanksgiving Night Football, against the Baltimore Ravens would be the most optimistic timeline that he could potentially come back. And a lot of people are like, that seems pretty early. Maybe the final couple of weeks, but Thanksgiving, that's pretty early for something like this. I mean, there's some rumblings out there that he could be playing on Sunday. Obviously, he was a full participant in practice yesterday. And, you're going to get that designation if you do the 11-on-11 stuff, right? A couple of the beat reporters there reported that out for Cincinnati, but that was always the plan, right? It was 7-on-7 stuff last week, and they were trying to integrate him into the 11-on-11 stuff this week, and he's getting reps. Is he going to start? That is the question against the New England Patriots. A lot of people out there nationally have said yes, absolutely. We've had people here at Chatterbox that say yes, clearly he's going to start. I'm not going to sit here and say it's wishful thinking because I agree. I mean, you look at it, he's practicing in full, right? He's moving around fine. He's doing 11-on-11 stuff. I mean, that looks like a guy that's about to go out and start. I understand that. I do think it is very much, at this point, as we sit here at 11:09 on a Thursday, I think it's very much 50-50. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Zach Taylor, he went on 700 WLW this morning with our friend Tom Brenneman. Of course, Tom was asking him, and he was like, yeah, basically, I'm not ready to commit to anything here at this point. I'm not going to go out there and say he's playing. But he didn't rule him out there either. I think they would like to see, how he does throughout the back end of this week, how it's holding up, how he continues to do on 11-on-11, and then make a decision for there. But I think we're going to find out here sooner rather than later if he is playing. I've talked to some people that have covered the team, and it's kind of a split. You got some people that are like, yeah, I expect him to go Sunday, and I've got other people it's like, yeah, they're ramping him up. Things are in the right direction. No setbacks or anything like that, but I think probably the Baltimore game is when he will come back on Thanksgiving as opposed to the New England Patriots game here this Sunday. I really think it's very much 50-50 here at this point. I don't think a decision has been made. I definitely think they are going to consider how he looks in practice today and, how he responded from yesterday and kind of evaluate the whole thing from there. But I do think we're going to know before Sunday, right? This isn't like, he twisted his ankle in the game last week and he's going to be a game time decision. They're not going to do a game-time decision thing here with Joe Burrow. I would be shocked if Zach Taylor did that. It's not really something that he would do, especially at that quarterback position. I think we're going to know sooner rather than later if he is going to go out there and start for the Cincinnati Bengals against New England. And, I very much think it is kind of a 50-50 situation here. I definitely don't think it is a foregone conclusion that, he was full yesterday, 100% he is going to start. I really do think it's a coin flip, and that might seem like a cop-out, but just based on some of the things I've heard, some of the people I've talked to, people aren't fully sold on him going this week against the New England Patriots. But part of the reason why I think he might come back on Sunday isn't just because he practiced in full. It's because Joe Burrow's a bit of a nut job, right? He's a bit of a psycho. And when you look at the Cincinnati Bengals schedule, here on out, and you look at their record where it is right now, look, we've all declared the season over, right? We've all said that there's no chance that they can get into the playoffs. And for the record, I agree with that. I believe that regardless of number 9 coming back at some point, this team isn't making the playoffs. I can go up there and say that. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm fine making that declaration here at this point. We can say that as a fan base, but the coaches can't coach like that, and the players shouldn't play like that either, even though there might be a few players like Geno Stone that are playing like that. But in Joe Burrow's mind, he's probably sitting there going, I got to play this week in New England because we got to win out. If the Bengals win every single game here in the regular season, they're going to be in the playoffs, right? It seems silly. I get people are laughing at that. It's not going to happen. But in Joe Burrow's mind, because he's a nut job and he's a sicko, he probably is like, I got to play this week against New England because we got to win out in order for us to get in. In his mind, he probably still thinks that is a possibility, which is why he's one of the greatest players to ever play the position already here at this point in his career, and it's why he will continue to be one of the greatest players here at that position here in the city of Cincinnati there as well, because he has that mindset. Again, us as a fan base, we can sit here and go, hey, this team, they're not winning out. They'll be lucky to win a few games. That's all good and well, but that's not how Joe Burrow is operating here, and that's probably why there's some urgency, right? I think when he wanted to come back, he's like, well, if we're in a spot where we can win out and get in, I'm in. Well, guess what? If you lose to New England and then win out, you're 9-8. I don't think that's enough to get in. So I think there's more of a sense of urgency for Joe in his mind to come back and play this game on Sunday. And the question, of course, becomes, does it make a heck of a lot of a difference if Joe Burrow is back for the Cincinnati Bengals? And this is what I just don't understand. Because some people are out there and they're like, oh, Joe Flacco and the offense, they've been just fine. The offense isn't the issue. What's Joe Burrow coming back going to do? It's like you guys, not all you guys, but it's like a lot of the fan base has forgotten who Joe Burrow is. Right? Yes, it's going to look better if Joe Burrow is out there for this team. I don't care if the offense has been good. Obviously, it wasn't good last week. The previous weeks before that, yeah, it was good. But it's going to be better with Joe Burrow out there. You're paying this guy, what, $275 million for a reason, right? He, you can say, oh, football players make too much money. That's fine. But with what he does on the football field, he is worth every penny of that contract that he has. Absolutely, it is going to look better, and absolutely, you have a better chance at beating the New England Patriots if Joe Burrow is out there than Joe Flacco. I really don't understand why that is so hard for people to understand. Is the defense horrible? Yes, I understand that. Is there a world where the Bengals go out there and score 40 points and still lose? Yes, that is very much a possibility here. But to sit here and say that they basically have the same shot with Joe Flacco than they do with Joe Burrow, to me, doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I really don't understand that. But it'll be interesting to see. I think we'll have an answer sooner rather than later. For Burrow, obviously, we've all got our fingers crossed. I want to see him play. Again, especially in this spot because, it feels like, as I said, the season is over, right? But if you can win this game, and then you can string together there is some, reason to at least have a little bit of hope. Whereas if he comes back in a few weeks and you're already eliminated, then you're just like, this is stupid. What if he gets hurt? I get that. I don't think you're fully at that point as a team right now because technically they still have life. Again, I don't think they have life. You don't think they have life. And we're both completely sane, and we are on the right side here when it comes to them not having life. But as a team, as a professional team, they have to operate like they still have a chance to make the playoffs. And they technically still do, but obviously they have to win out, and that's probably not going to happen. But I think it's very fascinating to see how this has developed. Joe Burrow, it's unbelievable what he is able to do. The odds were stacked against him. Nobody thought New England was even a possibility, right? And he might not play, right? But he's practicing full, and there's a real chance for him to play, and that is magnificent. Just that in and of itself, that he is in this spot where he was able to rehab it. The Bengals training staff deserves a ton of credit for getting him in this spot, and he's going to come back sooner rather than later. And there's a real possibility here that he could be coming back before Thanksgiving, which is just really hard to wrap your head around. They were talking, people that cover the team were in the locker room yesterday talking to guys. Gesicki, he's going to get ramped up. He'd missed obviously several weeks with that pec injury. He could potentially be making a return, but all the skill guys in the locker room, they all seem to think that, he looks like Joe Burrow out there. He looks like Joe Burrow. He's accurate with the football, and he's making quick decisions. And, he looks like Joe Burrow at practice. And I think that obviously is really, really optimistic and certainly a very good thing to hear. Now, the question becomes, and we've talked about this a little bit there as well, is he going to look like September Joe Burrow, or is he going to look like Thanksgiving Joe Burrow when he comes back, right? Because for whatever reason, we talk about these slow starts, whatever. Joe Burrow is incredible, but for whatever reason, those first few games, it takes him a little bit to get going. This year, you were still able to win, right? But was Joe Burrow spectacular against Cleveland and before he got hurt against Jacksonville? No. But you can't afford for him to play like that when he comes back. He's got to look like November Joe Burrow. And that's something about him his whole career, was each and every week, basically, he gets better and better and better, and then it's December and January, and he's playing his best ball. Can't really afford him to be in a spot where he looks like September Joe. When he comes back, obviously there is no room for error, and it's probably silly that we're even talking about that aspect here on the show. But I'm very interested to see what he looks like and what kind of, if he looks like early season Joe, if he looks like late November Joe. And obviously the mobility is going to be something a lot of people have their eye on. I've been banging the table saying if he is ready to go, he should play. But if he's a statue in the pocket and he's not moving around at all, we're going to sit there and go, well, clearly something isn't right, and maybe he should not be playing. But if you see him get outside the pocket, extend a little bit, step up, it's going to be like, oh, yep, they made the right call, and he's back, and it'd be an unbelievable thing, obviously, if that ends up being true here on Sunday. Again, we'll see. I think it's very much 50-50 here at this point. I don't think Zach knows in his mind. I think maybe he wants Joe to play and thinks that is the plan, but they're not, fully in on that yet. I think today is certainly going to be a big day in determining that, and we'll see how the week progresses. But that could, certainly provide a spark, right? You need it. You desperately need it. And even if you put playoffs out the window, you need something to gain a little positive momentum here for this team, because you got to win some of these games. Right, and for the record, I do think they will find a way to win a few of these games, right? The Bengals, all they do, they literally do this every year, where it's like, yeah, not good enough, and then they get hot to end, right? I don't know if they're going to get scorching hot like they have in years past, but I would be shocked if they won only 4 or 5 games. I think they're going to win, I would say 7 at the minimum, to be completely honest with you. 8 and 9, 9 and 8. Kind of feels like where they're headed here at this point. But based on their defense and based on the fact they're seemingly losing every week, I get how that would seem a little bit irrational. But I think they're going to find a way to win some games, especially if Joe Burrow is out there. And look, we're all going to hold our breath. And I was talking with Reed about this all week. This is life as a Bengals fan with Joe Burrow at the quarterback position. People that don't want him to play, he's going to get hurt. Every time he goes out there for the rest of his career and he drops back and he takes a hit, you're going to hold your breath a little bit. That's just the reality of the situation. It's unfortunate. It stinks, right? Obviously, it stinks for Joe. But at the end of the day, you're willing to do it because he's your quarterback, right? It's not like you look at these teams across the NFL, man. So many of them, they got no clue what they're doing at quarterback. So many of them are like, yeah, we want to go with this guy, but do we think he is the guy, our franchise guy? No. The Bengals have their franchise guy, and unfortunately, every time he goes out there, you're going to be holding your breath a little bit that he gets hurt. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. Hopefully he can stay healthy throughout the rest of the year, and hopefully he can play on Sunday. But again, I'm not fully sold that is going to be happening here at this point. I think a lot of people think it's kind of a foregone conclusion here that he's definitely going to play. I think it's very much up in the air. Talking to people around the team, some think he will, some think he won't, and it's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out. But it seems like everything is going according to plan. He's doing 11 on 11. He looked good. He's moving around. And I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. But stay tuned on that front. I'm sure that news will be out sooner rather than later. All right, great night of college basketball last night. That's back-to-back nights, by the way, as you had Kentucky and Michigan State earlier in the week, and then Duke, Kansas. And then last night you had Arizona and UConn was the early game, and Alabama, Illinois with the later game. 2 upsets last night in college basketball. Top 5 matchup in Storrs, Connecticut, which, that's awesome to get at this stage of the year before Thanksgiving. Credit to, those teams for playing and making it happen. But Arizona is interesting because they've always been a really solid team. If you remember a couple of years ago, they had a really, really good team. It's like, oh, they could win the national title, and then they lost to Princeton, and you're like, what in the world's going on? But Arizona is a basketball school. Make no mistake about it, and they're really, really good. And, this year there was a lot of uncertainty because they got a lot of new faces and they got a lot of freshmen. But newsflash, they're really, really good. I said it at the top of the show. buy your Arizona stock now if you have not done so already. They won 71-67. They start 3 freshmen, and they got another one coming off the bench, so they got youth everywhere. And then Jaden Bradley is kind of their leader, their captain, their senior. He's been there for a few years, and he was their leading scorer last night. He's a tremendous player. But you look at Koa Pete, man, that guy's a dog. Right, and he's like 230 pounds. He can shoot it. He can get to the rim. He's 18 years old. Like he is an unbelievable player. And there's really, a loaded freshman class. There always seemingly is in college basketball. But this Koa Pete kid is the real deal for Arizona. We're going to talk about Michael Brown with Scott Springer here in a little bit for Louisville. But some of these freshmen are really, really good. Koa Pete, absolutely insane. And look, UConn, they're going to be fine. They were without their leading scorer and leading rebounder in the game, Terrace Reed Jr. Also, they have a 5-star freshman that is yet to play this year. I believe he's got an ankle issue, so they're not at full health here at this point. Caravan only had like 8 points, so low ball, couldn't shoot the ball well. So honestly, they were fortunate that they were able to keep it as close as they were. I think certainly playing at home helped out a little bit with that. I think UConn, a lot of people thought, they could get back to the national title and win. They definitely still can. Again, they're not at full health here at this point, but they're clearly not as good as maybe I thought in this game. If you're at home like that and some freshmen can come in and really dominate you like Arizona did, that says a lot. And again, I don't think it's really much on, UConn's not necessarily as good as we thought, but more so, wow, Arizona is absolutely the real deal. And Lloyd's done a tremendous job with them. LeBron's son, Bryce James, of course, is on their roster. I think there's a real possibility he could redshirt. That's just kind of, giving some perspective there a little bit because they play 4 freshmen, right? And Bryce James is obviously a freshman, but just not, on that level at this point. I think he was a 3-star recruit, so it wasn't like some highly touted guy. But he seems like he could be a true developmental player, right? I mean, he's LeBron's son. He's got to be made of all the right things mentally. So, redshirt this year, stay in the program with a good coach, great basketball school in Arizona, and potentially get a little bit better. But I don't anticipate him playing much of a role this year for the Wildcats. But that's a fun team, man. That's a fun team. And it's interesting because you get into March and it's like, well, if you got that many freshmen, can you win? Sometimes you can, right? Certainly Duke won a bunch last year. Not saying these freshmen are Cooper Flagg and Kai Knipple and Malawatch there. I'm not going to get carried away, but these freshmen are absolutely the real deal, and I would be buying Arizona stock right now if I am a college basketball fan. Also, Alabama beats Illinois 90-86. And, Alabama's we talk about their football team going through a gauntlet. Well, their basketball team certainly is going through a bit of a gauntlet there as well. They already played St. John's. They already played Purdue. They already played Illinois. That's 3 top 15 teams right there. And they've got Gonzaga next, who I think Gonzaga is actually going to have a really good team this year, Mark Few and company. And, I love that from Nate Oates, right? He's, a guy that he wants to challenge his team, right? He doesn't want to sit here and play Little Sisters of the Poor the first few weeks of the year. He wants to see what his team is made of, and he believes that will help them down the stretch. And I was really impressed with how they bounced back in the game against Illinois, because that Purdue game, they really, really struggled on the glass. They couldn't do much. They got dominated down there. They got out-rebounded, and, that obviously isn't a recipe for success. Now, Purdue's going to do that to a lot of different teams, right? They've got some big guys. Kaufman-Wren, he's one of the best players in the country. Braden Smith might be the best player in the country, and they got another big in there that can get a lot of rebounds. And that's going to be the question with this Alabama team, right? And it kind of seemingly always is, right? If you have a big 7-footer that can just control the glass, that could put Alabama in a tough spot. But Taylor Bowen, he rebounded the ball a lot better. Transfer from Florida State. That was good to see in the game last night. Aiden Sherrill there as well. He was, had some soft moments, I would say, against Purdue. Certainly didn't have that last night against Illinois. And, I thought he played really solid there in the game. That was big for him coming back. He was a freshman last year, highly touted guy. I think Alabama's probably paying him a lot of money to come back, but that was huge. And, if those guys can hang in there and grab rebounds, this team can beat anybody and could potentially win the national title. Looking forward to talking about the Louisville backcourt with Scott Springer, but, those might be the 2 best backcourts in the country with Alabama and Louisville. Holloway's back, Philon's back, and, I was really impressed with the maturity we saw last night of LeBaron Philon. If you remember, he was a freshman last year, and then he could have came out and probably been a first-round pick, right? Not a lottery pick, but probably could have been a first-round pick. And, he tested the waters and ultimately decided to come back, and I think that's going to pay dividends for him. I think he's going to play himself potentially into becoming a lottery pick and potentially compete for a national championship here with Nate Oates. But I thought he hurt the team a lot in the game against Purdue. Some bad decisions, some bad body language stuff, just some unprofessional, immature decision-making there from Philon, but he was unbelievable in the game last night. You could just tell he had a different look on his face. It was very businessman, workman-like attitude from LeBaron Philon, and he was getting to the rim, which is something he wasn't doing enough of against Purdue. I think the reason he came back, one of the big reasons, is work on a shot a little bit, and he was able to hit a couple of shots there as well. Had a big three at the top of the key at the end of the game. There was at a point there in the final closing minutes where he scored 9 consecutive points for Alabama, which was really, really big for the Crimson Tide. And he's going to be their best player, and he's going to be a guy that they need to lean on, but he's still got some youth, right? He's still got some inexperience. There's still some immaturity stuff there potentially, but I expect him to, play his way into being a lottery pick. And when you put him there with Holloway in the backcourt, those guys are elite. You think of Philon as a guy kind of distributing and getting to the rim, can also shoot a little bit, but Aiden Holloway is a flat-out sniper, and he'll pull up from anywhere, and he'll shoot the three ball. And that's what Nate Oates, his teams are kind of built on that, right? They're gonna run the floor, they're gonna sprint up and down the field, they're gonna score a ton of points, and they're gonna chuck threes. That's what they do. So if they have a game in March where the three ball isn't falling, they're susceptible to losing. But we'll see. I think last year they played Duke, obviously, in the Elite Eights. They just were outmatched in that game. It's that simple. That Alabama team was a heck of a run getting to the Elite Eight last year, but that Duke team was just too much. And, Houston was really the only team, in my opinion, that really had an opportunity to beat Duke last year, and they obviously were able to do that, and then ultimately just barely came up short against Florida. But great college basketball last night. I expect Alabama to really be a force with that backcourt that they've got going on. But like I said, another team with a really, really good backcourt is the Louisville Cardinals. And now it is time to welcome in our guest. His name is Scott Springer, and he covers the Cincinnati Bearcats for the Enquirer, Cincinnati.com. Scott, can you hear me? How's it going? Thanks for making some time.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can, yes. We are live.
Oh, my
we
God,
are ready
we
to
got
rock.
a show now.
How about it? Well, Scott, I appreciate you stopping by. I really wanted to get your thoughts here on this game on Friday between the Cincinnati Bearcats and, of course, the Louisville Cardinals. These teams haven't played since 2022. UC actually got the better of Louisville there in that matchup. Louisville's the top 10 team. I think they very much could win the national title, and the backcourt, obviously, is something that has gotten a lot of storylines this week. What are some of the things that UC needs to do in this game to the point where there's 5 minutes left and they have an opportunity to potentially pull off a huge upset? What are all the things that need to go right for UC?
Well, against Dayton, they had 24 turnovers, so I'm guessing that's not a very good idea right there. So take care of the basketball. They want to play fast. Pat Kelsey wants to play fast. So maybe this is a game where they dial it down a little bit. I don't know. It's not something they necessarily want to do. They're kind of dedicated to playing fast. They did cut it to 10 turnovers in the last game, but obviously with Louisville, you want to guard the perimeter because those guys can knock them down. And folks around here remember Ryan Conwell at Xavier. I remember him at Indiana State in the NIT against UC knocking shots down. And he's career-wise, he's over 40% from three-point range. So there's him, McNeely, their other guy from Virginia, Brown Jr., Michael Brown. He knocks them down. They have a lot of weapons, and they keep getting more. And Pat's done a heck of a job since he's been there. ACC Coach of the Year. I think he's 8 wins away from 300 on his career. He said he doesn't want to talk about that, but I bet he talks about it to somebody because why wouldn't you? That's a lot.
No doubt about that. You talked about those guards, right? Conwell, obviously, from Xavier, and Michael Brown, who really in college basketball, there's a ton of really good freshmen this year, and he might be at the top of that list. From a defensive perspective, how do you think Wes Miller is going to try to attack those guards? Because, Day-Day scored a lot of points for you, but do you feel good about him kind of going up against Michael Brown, or is that maybe a Buck Harris assignment? How do you think they're going to tackle those guards?
Day played some good defense recently. Buck Harris is the guy that really energizes the guys. I don't think he's going to start because he's so effective coming off the bench with that instant energy. So, Yeah, that's a good question. If I knew, I don't know if I'd tell Wes or not, because maybe that would be a conflict of interest because I'm supposed to be objective here. But let's face facts. My job's easier when Cincinnati wins. So you always kind of root for the winner. Yeah, I don't know if they can borrow Jim Boeheim's zone or what, because they're going to need something, because these guys can light it up, and number 6 in the nation, and they're averaging 103 points per game. A lot of teams don't score that in any one game, and they're averaging that. They put 96 on Kentucky. So they're going to score points. It's just a matter, UC's going to either have to score with them if they're going to run, or figure out a way to shut them down, or there's some word that the rims are tight at Heritage Bank, so maybe hope that the rims are tight. I don't know. Last year, and the problem too with that Heritage Bank game is it's not part of the season ticket package for the Bearcat fans. The prices are a little bit high. Wes Miller came out and said, "Hey, I don't like it that they're raising these ticket prices." And if you look at the ticket prices, on a normal game, for instance, UC Monday plays NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, not necessarily the draw of Louisville by any means, but you can get an upstairs ticket for like $20 and change, whereas the cheapest ticket for Heritage Bank is listed at 45, but they're 45, 62, 89. Anything within the court is like 193 when I looked at it yesterday. My own kid bought tickets for my wife and his fiance, and I think they were 89 apiece. So it's a little expensive to go down there, but Louisville fans are pretty rabid. Don't be surprised if there's more Louisville fans, because 2 years ago they played this game with Dayton. The Dayton fans came out of the woodwork, and I thought it was 70-30, 60-40 at best in favor of Dayton. Last year I think it was a little more even, but this year I think you might see some Louisville fans there, and you might be surprised that you're going to be in your own hometown, but people will not necessarily be cheering for you. You'll have some, but not as many as you think. That's my guess.
You talk about West commenting on the ticket prices and how high they were. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are like, this game should be at Fifth Third. This game should be at the Yum Center. We don't need it to be, away from these campuses. What's kind of your take on that? And also, there is a very big high school football game at Paycor on Friday. There's some people that are worried that, well, maybe some of the fans are going to head that direction. Do you think that's a real possibility there as well?
Well, Pat Kelsey's an elder guy. He might have an earbud in and listen to the football game while he's coaching. So maybe that would help you see. I'm not sure. The traffic just got a little more hairier, and it's going to be a bit crazy. But the one thing I can say for the basketball game, I think there's rain in the forecast, so it's not going to rain inside Heritage Bank unless there's a major leak. So stay inside and nice and warm and all that type thing. But why is it not a home and home? I asked him that yesterday. Dayton did turn into a home and home. He didn't rule out this being that in the future, but next year the game goes to Freedom Hall. So what it is, it's an outside company coming in promoting a game. Theoretically, both teams will get some money, I guess, that they can use for NIL. And they're holding it at these venues because I'm guessing it's cheaper to hold it at these venues. And if they can charge whatever and make a profit, that's the bottom line for the promoter. I mean, the promoter's he's going to hope for a good game, but the bottom line, they want to make a buck.
We touched on Buck Harris a little bit. Obviously, he brings a lot of juice off the bench. He might be my favorite player on this team, to be completely honest with you. It feels like he's
an old school Bearcat.
Yes, no doubt. And he feels like he needs to have a really big game, whether it be defensively or just providing some juice, getting to the rim, making a big play. Do you agree with that? Do you think he needs to be really sharp here in this game for Cincinnati to have a chance?
Well, it'd be very helpful, and he needs to stay out of foul trouble. He's had some foul trouble in some of the games. But some of that, too, is, and Wes has said this, that, coaches and other players will lobby referees before the game. Watch out for that Sincere Harris. He's got hands all over the place. So people do that, and sometimes you get a call that way. That's not the way it should work. But, if he can stay out of foul trouble and be disruptive and get some steals. But, hey, Louisville's a good defensive team, too. Their last 4 games, I think they had 12 steals in their first game and 11 in the next 3. And so they get the hands on the basketball also. So as far as you see, you want to get some of these long-armed guys out there on the perimeter and see if they can swat some of these things away, because they can shoot. If you've seen Ryan Conwell, right, he can shoot.
Day Thomas, obviously a completely new look team for Cincinnati. He's the one guy that does come back. I thought his role would look a lot different than it does currently. He obviously led the team in scoring last year, and I thought he would kind of take a backseat a little bit to that, but they've needed him to score these past couple of games. What's kind of your take on that? Were you a little bit surprised that they're asking him to score so much, or is that kind of what you expected?
Well, I think he recognizes he's the guy now. He's the one guy that played consistently from last year. Hal Bean got into some games late, and McKinley was injured. So, Day is your one guy that played with Wes and knows, how Wes plays and what's going on and all that. So I think he stepped up and scored some. His shot improved dramatically last year, made some key shots, and he's very good at creating a shot and making a big shot. So you like that. The other guys, Abayev's got all the talent in the world, and he's not shy from shooting it when he's not hitting. So he's got a great future and all that. But and Kirk Reese is another veteran. His shot has not been on of late. It seems like he hits one or two early and then cools down. But he's a tough dude. He'll take charges, and he plays with a lot of heart and all that. So you need that. The two big guys have been fine. Baba Miller particularly. He's averaging a double-double. He only missed a double-double. I think he had 8 points and 10 rebounds in the third game. So that was Mount St. Mary's, I think. I'm cheating here looking at my stuff. Or that was the Dayton game.
Yeah.
Yeah. But every other game, double-double. And so I think he's like 15.8, 10.5 rebounds. And he can just do some things inside. So, maybe this is a game where you got to rely on the inside scoring against Louisville. I don't know. They're just a tough draw. I agree they're a national championship contender, and they had a great portal class. And Pat Kelsey he's really happy to come to the building. He was telling me that years ago his dad took him to the building when it was called the Riverfront Coliseum, which old people like me, we still say the Coliseum. And he saw some big games at the Coliseum that really turned him on to basketball. And he told me that he went home and got some cardboard and spread it out in his basement and made his own personal Riverfront Coliseum. So, and some of the early shootouts that he saw took place down there, because at one point that was UC's floor for a while. Xavier was at the Gardens, and Cincinnati played downtown. And really back then, the Bearcats would only sell out if they were playing Xavier or maybe Louisville, or one year Memphis came in with a pretty good ranked team. But other than that, heck, when I was in school, you had to get on a bus and come down, or you drove yourself down, and you were there with 2,000 of your close personal friends watching the Bearcats and struggled to a 500 record.
Scott Springer joining us, Cincinnati.com and the Inquirer live here on the show. You always talk about a fast start. It's obviously important in each and every game, but it kind of feels like this game more so than ever. I think if UC's in a spot where they're down like 12-2 and they got to pop off a timeout, they might just be kind of cooked at that point. How important is it for Cincinnati to get off to a fast start here on Friday?
It's important, but in basketball, teams go on runs, and when they play as fast as Cincinnati and Louisville, teams can come back. You look at the Michigan game, even though it was an exhibition, you're watching that in the first half, you're going, holy crap, they might have a team. They're blowing the doors off of Michigan. But Michigan came back. Now, if you remember watching the game, Michigan had kept their starters in, and West was going in and out with some of his guys. So it gets close. UC wins that game. It doesn't matter. It's kind of like the Ohio State game the year before. They looked great, maybe the best they played all year long, and then it wasn't quite the same. So you got to figure out, how to scout up Louisville, and this is a great test, because you got Louisville, you got Xavier coming up, you've got Clemson coming up, you got Georgia, all in the non-conference, and then the Big 12. So Big 12 is a war night in and night out. So you might as well start playing these guys early rather than, building up a 15-0 record against East-West directional state.
Turnovers obviously have been a huge issue for the team this year. A lot was made kind of over the summer and coming into the year about kind of a change in philosophy. They were going to play a lot faster than they ever have here under Wes Miller. Do you think that has potentially contributed to some of these mistakes? But you see a lot of them. It's a lot of just mental errors like traveling violations, double dribbles. What do you think has been the root of the issue as far as all the turnovers go?
Wes has said in practice it wasn't an issue prior to these upcoming games, but there again in practice you don't have 10,000 people watching you and all that,
Right.
and all the pressure and stuff. So that's probably part of it. I think it's human nature for young people. Their mind gets a little ahead of their body and their reactions. I mean, it happens to me sometimes. I'll be wanting to do something. I don't know. It's just it something in the wiring, I guess, but. Yeah, you can't throw the ball away 24 times and expect to win. And they were like 15, 16 the first couple of games, and they dropped it down to 10. But he said that he's recognized just like some casual, careless turnovers and things like that. So it's something that they hope to correct. They did correct it by 14 in the last game. If you can force more on the other end, maybe that helps some too. But yeah, you can't throw the ball out of bounds. It's always good to know that the guy you're throwing to is wearing the same jersey.
Mustafa Cham, he kind of broke out a little bit in the second half this past game against Mount St. Mary's. I think really when you look at Louisville, obviously their guards are their strength. If there's one weakness, it's if they're getting to the rim, maybe you can block some shots. Do you think Mustafa is going to be in a spot where he could really have an impact on this game? Because I think he needs to really play well if they want to have a chance.
Yeah, he has to be a little bit more aggressive in my book. Some games he hasn't looked as involved as you would like. Now I've seen him play really well when he was at UCF at times. So and the guy can shoot, and you really can't leave him out on the 3-point line. He can make those every now and then. So he's a threat. I think he had 4 blocks the last game. Miller had 4 blocks. If you get 4 blocks a game out of those guys, that's going to be very helpful. But yeah, both of those guys are going to have to be really involved and stay out of foul trouble. Because, one area where you're missing a bit with UC is in the post, because I think Jalen Haynes, the guy from George Mason, would have really helped him. Different body shape, bigger, wider guy. Actually has lost a ton of weight. I think he told me he's down to 240. I think when they signed him, he was 265. So he looks a lot better. But the guy is injured, and they're hoping to get him back maybe later in the season, or maybe get him a medical red shirt or something. But he's a guy that would have given you more depth. The last game, McKinley, I don't know if he injured his knee again or not, but they took him out as a precaution because something wasn't feeling right. And so you had to go with Halvin Zella, who tries his best and has his moments, but McKinley's probably a hair better, and obviously Jalen Haynes would be somebody. They pursued him in the portal, so he's somebody that would have helped them out a lot. So when Miller and Cham go out of the game, you need to have guys in there that are going to clean the glass and do the jobs. And so we'll see how that goes. Quite honestly, I don't know a ton about Louisville's big men. I know they have some. I'm guessing they're not half bad, or otherwise they wouldn't be at Louisville.
Sean Abayev, obviously a big-time recruit. I think the highest profile recruit since Lance Stevenson, if I'm not mistaken there. How would you evaluate his performance so far this year? And do you think his role could potentially change at all? Not necessarily, like he hasn't played bad. I'm not saying he should go to the bench, but maybe that could provide them some kind of spark if he did transition to the bench. Is that something that could be a possibility? And just your overall thoughts on his performance to this point?
Well, I'm not privy to the agreements they make with players when they sign them and all that. My guess would be that Sean is a starter to stay.
Yeah.
When he's on, look out. I mean, because he can take over a game and change momentum. Even in the last game when UC finally took the lead in that game, that they had a trouble with Mount St. Mary's. By the way, Mount St. Mary's took Maryland to overtime last night.
Right, I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe they're not bad. But, Abayev had a big tomahawk slam that got the crowd going. He's got a great step-back 3. I'm getting messages on my computer here. I'm guessing you're not concerned about the newsroom potluck, but I had an update on that. I'll let you know what I'll bring. Anyway, back to Sean. I got to see him last year at Overtime Elite before UC played Georgia Tech. And he does put up a lot of shots, but there's so much he can do. I mean, he essentially is a 6'8" point guard. He can run the point if you need him to. And he's a matchup problem if you've got a guard on him inside. So I think he just needs more game time and confidence. But, I got to say, the first game against Michigan, it's like, gee whiz, he looks the same as he did against the high school guys.
Yeah.
So he's someone that's going to stay. Is he going to leave for the NBA? I don't know. Maybe that's the plan. But right now, I think he's got a ways to go. The best NBA prospect I see is Baba Miller.
Yeah,
talked to Fran Fraschilla before the season because he came out to one of their dinners that they had, before the season, a preseason deal, and gave a speech. But he said, talking to his NBA contacts, Miller is the top NBA prospect for the Bearcats right now. Miller, Chom, Abaya would be your top three.
Last one for you, Scott, before we get out of here. Got to ask you about the football team. Obviously, a disappointing loss to Arizona. Got BYU this week. Huge game. Your overall thoughts on that? Do you think the Cats have a chance on Saturday?
Well, they're home, and it's senior night, and that helps. They wanted to play nip at night. The kids are always liking the nip at night. And you got the big noon kickoff at 10 a.m., so anyone that's having some libation in the morning, you've got 8 hours to correct yourself before kickoff. BYU is very, very good. One loss to Texas Tech, who's extremely good. Brendan Sorsby has to have better games. I don't think he's been 100% here recently. I know most of the seniors that came back, the Gavin Gerhardts and Dante Corleones and like that, they all said, hey, we came back because it left a bad taste in our mouth last year to lose 5 straight after you were 5-2, lose 5 straight and not make a bowl game. So we want to come back and fix that. Well, they're going to go to a bowl. Right now, it's what bowl are you going to go to? Are you going to be a 7-5 team, an 8-4, or a 9-3? I think if you lose the next two, you lose a lot of momentum. So it's all there for the taking for them on Saturday night, because you've got the national spotlight in the morning, you've got the national spotlight again that night, senior night. So if you can figure out a way to stop Bear Bachmeier and figure out a way to not throw the ball to the other team or cough it up, you got a chance, because this team has played pretty good in spots, and even in the Utah game, there were parts of the game that okay, they're in it, they're going to come back. Arizona game probably hurts the most because that was one that they really should have won and really didn't take advantage of. So that could come back to bite them. So could they win? I think they could. Realistically, they make me make predictions here at the Inquirer, so I did not predict them to win. Yeah. But I'm always happy to be wrong because, again, it makes my job easier when a Cincinnati team wins. It's just life's a lot easier.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, Scott, I appreciate you. Let everybody know where they can find all your great work over at the Inquirer, Cincinnati.com, and on social media there as well.
Yeah, I'm actually in the building today. I snuck into this little office, so I'm sorry I don't have great decorations like I would have. But 312 Plum we are. Okay, S. Springer Sports on X, S. Springer Sports, and then Cincinnati.com. You can find me, and I think on Instagram, it's I think that's S. Springer Sports too. You might see some vacation photos or something on there, but there's some silly videos and whatever nonsense that I do, because this beats working. I don't have any other marketable skills, so I might as well go watch ball games.
I love it. I'm right there with you, by the way, as well. Well, Scott, I appreciate you making some time. I know it's a busy week. Thanks so much for coming on, and would love to do it again, man. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you.
All right, Scott Springer, Inquirer, Cincinnati.com. He's been covering the Bearcats for a long time, basketball and football, and we certainly appreciate him making some time here on the show. Great stuff from Scott Springer. That interview will be out later today on YouTube, and you can, of course, find it in podcast form there as well. Big game on Friday. I'm looking forward to it. Louisville and Cincinnati. Hopefully the Cats can get out to a decent start and find a way to hang in there and, have a chance, right? You're not going to blow out Louisville, but I think if you're in a, 3 to 5 point game with 5 minutes to go, you're right there. And I think Wes Miller certainly would take that any day of the week. All right, a couple of more minutes here on the show. Big news in the NFL yesterday. Shedeur Sanders, he is going to be starting for the Cleveland Browns against the Las Vegas Raiders. And look, I was wrong. I thought Sanders was going to be taken in the first round. I didn't think he was going to be a great franchise guy, but I thought somebody was going to take him in the first round. Clearly, I was way off on that, as the Giants, of course, traded up for Jackson Dart, and then he just continued to fall and fall and fall. Dillon Gabriel was taken 2 rounds ahead of him in the third round, and probably the most significant fall in the NFL draft ever, in the history of the NFL draft. And you look at some of the stuff he did at Colorado. Obviously, they didn't win a ton. There wasn't a ton of pieces around him, but he hung in there. He made some good throws in some clutch moments, showed his mobility there outside the pocket. So I just thought he was better than a 5th-round player. But at the end of the day, he gets an opportunity here, and you got to make sure you capitalize here if you're in a situation where you get drafted at that stage of the draft. For example, look at J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota. If he was a 5th-round pick, he would not be playing right now. I can promise you that. But he's a 1st-round pick. It's a top-of-the-line resource. You took a chance on him. You got to let this thing play out for a little bit. Shedeur, who knows how many opportunities he's going to get to start. So he's got to make sure he capitalizes on them right here, right now. He had an opportunity to sit and learn. We'll see how much he was able to pick up from Joe Flacco and even just being the backup in recent weeks to Dillon Gabriel. Look, he's got a really, really good defense. We all understand what Cleveland can do from a defensive perspective. I look at that line. Vegas, I think, is favored by 4 points, which is really hard for me to believe. I think if you're Shedeur Sanders and you can score 20 points, you're probably going to win the game against Las Vegas. But it'll be very interesting to monitor. I don't think he's going to be a franchise guy. I think Cleveland hasn't been able to address that position in quite some time. Well, they did with Baker, and then they moved off him like only Cleveland would, right, obviously, in that situation. But I don't anticipate Gabriel or Shedeur being the guy for them going forward, but if he gets hot, he can string together some wins, and more importantly, the team rallies around him and believes in him. I think he could be in a spot where he could, continue to start some games, and maybe they'll have a decision to make when Gabriel is healthy and ready to go, if he will take over as the starter or if they will stick to Shedeur Sanders. But that is going to be fascinating to watch, right? None of us Browns, Raiders, nobody's watching that game, right? But now all of a sudden you're like, maybe I'll take a peek and see what's going on with Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, if his dad was, Deion Wilson, he wouldn't be, getting all this attention, but that's not the case. It's Deion Sanders, one of the greatest players of all time, which I think people, my age sometimes forget about that. They hear Deion say the stuff. He's a very polarizing figure. He clearly loves attention, right? His son clearly does there as well, but he was the real deal when he was playing, right? He was literally one of the best football players of all time. So, all the attention he gets, I guess it's deserving. And anytime he makes a move, says something in the media, people are going to talk about it, and it'll be fascinating to see how they handle kind of this situation with Shedeur and him. Because, again, he was supposed to be like a top 5 pick. I think the Sanders family probably thought he was going to be a top 5 pick. Yeah, Cam Ward was probably going to go 1, but I think they probably thought there was a chance that he went in the top 5 to Cleveland. Ends up still going to Cleveland, but in the 5th round. So that's going to be fascinating to kind of watch that develop, and we'll see how many more opportunities he gets. I think he's going to be fine, but I don't think he's going to prove that he is the guy and that they should roll with him next year or anything like that. And I'll be surprised, honestly, too, if he performs better than Dillon Gabriel. I just think, this day and age in the NFL, you have to have a really good quarterback if you want to compete and win championships. Maybe he can, hold on to the football and not lose you games, but he's not going to go out there and win you football games. But I think if you love football, you're going to take a peek and see what he's doing against Vegas. And perfect team to go against. Yeah, they got Max Crosby, but every NFL team is going to have somebody that is going to challenge you. But again, I really think you score 20 points, you're probably, especially with the way Myles Garrett's playing defensively, probably going to find a way to win that game. So that will be interesting. Shedeur Sanders making his first start of his NFL career on Sunday. Michael Penix, it's reported that he has a partially torn ACL, needs surgery. He's done. Falcons took him at number 8 overall, and everybody that watches football was sitting there scratching their head when they did it because they had just paid Kirk Cousins. Now, I think Atlanta, when they did it, probably realized, we may have made a huge mistake in paying Kirk Cousins, and we're going to take this guy. And Cousins, obviously, we'll see what he does throughout the end of this year. great NFL career, great player, has made a ton of money. Tip your hat to him for that. His agents, they've done a great job. And if you go and look at some of his contracts and all the money that he's made in the NFL, it is unbelievable. But clearly after the Achilles, he's not the same. He can never really move. But if you have a guy like Kirk Cousins and he's not surgically accurate anymore with the football, he's just not good enough in other areas to overcome that, right? Caleb Williams is stringing together wins. He's not accurate at all with the football, but he can extend plays. He can run. He's a bit of a magician back there. Obviously, Kirk Cousins does not have that ability at this point in his career, but we all laughed when they took Penix at 8 overall, like, what are you doing? And, Penix, he's had some fine moments, but again, you took him at 8 overall, so we should evaluate him like you took him 8 overall, not like he's a second-round pick or a third-round pick, right? You had other holes on your roster. You were paying Kirk Cousins. You could have gotten another player. You opted to take a quarterback, which, by the way, had all types of injuries at Indiana. And then obviously he finished his career at Washington with Kalen DeBoer, but he had injuries all over the place. The medical for him was not good, and he's kind of always been banged up, even as a starter here in Atlanta where he's missed some time. And now he hurts his knee once again. He's had a ton of huge knee injuries, and you just wonder what he's going to look like if he comes back. I'm not going to write him off. Right, they're probably still going to roll with him and hope he can be the guy next year if the surgery, he heals up fine and he's ready to go. But people were talking about that 2024 quarterback class, and I remember in the moment seeing those quarterbacks just fly off the board, just sitting there like, what in the world is going on, right? And then you had people, we talked about it on Off the Bench, like, is the 24 class better than the 20 class? No, it's absolutely not. J.J. McCarthy, I've been hard on him. I'm going to continue to be hard on him. He's not going to be – he can't play. He can't be a starter in the NFL. He just can't. He just can't. Then he was taken, of course, at number 10 overall. Penix, you take at 8. Right, all the injury history, right, and talk about these quarterbacks needing to be really athletic and move around. Penix is borderline a stationary guy back there, kind of a borderline statue. He does not move around like many of these other quarterbacks in the NFL. Obviously, it's not Jared Goff, but he's not moving around like Joe Burrow. He's certainly not moving around like Caleb Williams there either. So, that appears to be kind of a miss there as well. Jaden Daniels had an incredible rookie year. Takes the Commanders to the NFC title game against all odds, and then they kind of go in free agency, miss on a bunch of guys, and they're kind of falling apart at the seams. Had the contract dispute with Terry that lasted way too long, kind of got into the season there a little bit, and, the concern for Jaden Daniels was, he's so frail. I mean, he's kind of built like me out there, to be completely honest with you. Obviously, he's a little bit bigger than me, but he's a skinny dude out there, and he's not the biggest guy in the world either from a stature perspective there as well. And the injuries were going to be a concern with him, and he's been banged up all year, and he just had a very serious injury, and who knows if we're going to see him again this year. So that's a guy where it's like, well, yeah, we like what he can do as a player, but can he go out there and stay healthy? I don't know. He was taken at number 2 overall. And then Bo Nix, who was my favorite out of all these guys, besides Drake, or I actually at the time of the draft liked him more than Drake Maye, but I take that back now. I thought Nix was going to be the best and Maye was going to be the second best. Obviously, I would flip that here at this point because Drake Maye looks unbelievable. But Bo Nix has been a struggle bus, right? I mean, imagine if he didn't have Sean Payton, right? I mean, he's winning all these games, but you can basically flip his record and turn all those wins into losses and the losses into wins. If he didn't have Sean Payton, like if he was in a situation where he was in Atlanta, they would not be good, right? So he's been very fortunate to have a guy like Sean Payton, but he's really, really struggled. He turned it up against Kansas City and outplayed Mahomes, but the consistency has not been there at all for him. And then obviously Drake Maye, he's incredible. He's going to be incredible for a long time. He's clearly, to me, the best quarterback in that draft class, and Caleb Williams is certainly reaping the benefits of Ben Johnson. Again, you put him in Atlanta, I don't know. I don't think that works either. So people were just making such a big deal out of that 24 class, and I was just like, even in the moment, I was like, I mean, all these quarterbacks going top 12, like, what are we doing? And I think you're starting to see them kind of come back down to earth a little bit. And then you look at the 20 class, Burrow, Herbert, Love, Hurts, Tua, who, might not be a franchise guy, but he's been really solid as an NFL quarterback, right? He's been solid, hasn't been great, but I think clearly the 20 class is better. I mean, Hurts has been in 2 Super Bowls, has played his 2 best games in those 2 Super Bowls. Burrow, obviously, we think the world of him. Herbert's tremendous, right? I'm a big Jordan Love guy, even though it hasn't looked perfect at points this year. And, Tua, he's had a fine career. Obviously, there have been injuries. He can't win when it's cold, right? There's some leadership issues there with Tua, certainly. But, if you're the Dolphins, like clearly you would have, looking back, you would have taken Justin Herbert there in that spot, but I don't look at Tua and say, oh, that was a horrible move to pick him in the first round. Like, even based on his career to this point, I get the injuries, I get the lack of arm strength, the cold weather problems, I understand all that, but it's not like Tua is a bust, right? He's still, a fine quarterback, and if you give him protection, he's getting the ball out quick, he can still dime you up a little bit there, but just the 20 class, just way better, in my opinion. Now, I'm obviously hopefully Michael Penix can come back, hopefully he can, get healthy and play well for them, but it was a head-scratching move when Atlanta took him. It was a risk, and it doesn't appear to be the right decision here at this point. Lastly, Kyle Schwarber, he spoke. I don't know exactly where he was at, somewhere in Middletown, right? Obviously, he's a Middletown guy, went to Middletown High School, played for Midland, right? If you're familiar with the area, that's a big-time, baseball organization around this town. But I was really blown away how he was talking about the Cincinnati Reds. And, clearly there was – he was talking to Seg Dennison, who I used to work with at 700 WLW, and he was bringing up guys like Gordon Wittenmeyer, who, of course, covers the Reds there as well, and he just seemed very comfortable talking with, Cincinnati people, and he was very open, like, yeah, we love it here. My wife, she loves it here. Our kids, they love it here. All our friends, yep, they're here. I grew up here. The Reds are my favorite team. Like, come on, man. If you're Nick Kroll and you're Brad Metter, you got to figure this thing out. You got to find a way to get him here in Cincinnati. And there's not enough money. Like, that's such a lame excuse. There's a way to find a way to get Kyle Schwarber to come here. I don't care if you don't make any other signing. I said this when the season ended. Successful year, but you can't run it back with this roster. You have to make some changes, right? Literally, you can just not do anything. I know they've done a couple of things already at this point, but you can stop everything, get Kyle Schwarber, and that's it, and I'm on board. Let's go. Let's roll. Right? I think he really is, especially the way that the Reds pitch, he can completely transcend your team with the way he puts the baseball over the fence. He can completely transcend your team. He can completely make you a contender in this division, right? I'm not kidding when I say that. Milwaukee obviously is tremendous. All they do is win. It's crazy, especially in the regular season, really. But if you get Kyle Schwarber, I think you got to talk about, okay, the Reds have a chance in this division, in the Central. And just the way he spoke would encourage you to go check it out if you haven't seen it. I would assume that it's out on the Chatterbox page as well. Seg Dennison, 700 WLW, he has it on his Twitter page there. But just the way he was talking about it, he's like, yeah, we'll see what happens, right? He's a free agent. It feels good to be a free agent. He's played with a lot of winning organizations, right? The Cubs, with the Red Sox for a cup of coffee, obviously with the Phillies here for several years. And it seems like he's at a point, and his kids are getting a little bit older, starting to, potentially, get into school here at this point. His wife likes it here. They're building a house here. Like, come on, man. Find a way to get him here in Cincinnati. And, we talk about the hometown discount thing. And I kind of sat there. There's no way he's going to take a hometown discount. You only have one chance here to play in Major League Baseball and be a free agent and be, one of the most, if not the most highly coveted free agent. Go out there and get all the money that you possibly can while you can. I didn't think a hometown discount was a possibility, but after hearing him talk last night, it seemed like he really, had interest in playing here for the Cincinnati Reds. And come on, they got to figure this out. And a lot of times, we all sit here and we give our thoughts, right, and act like we're a GM or in control of, operations of a football team or a baseball team, whatever the case. The reality of the situation is none of us, we have any clue what's going on, right? When we sit here and say, yeah, we can all, go off on Duke Tobin for picking the wrong guys and it seemed like that would be better, but there's a lot that goes on behind closed doors that we don't know about, that we aren't privy to, that goes into this decision making. This isn't one of those situations here with Kyle Schwarber, right? The fans are right. Get Kyle Schwarber any way you can. He wants to be here. He's awesome. He does exactly what you need him to do, a left-handed bat that hits bombs. Bring him home. Get him here to Cincinnati, and that would be awesome. That would be just absolutely awesome in order to land him, and I think that's obviously there's the storyline element that's cool, hometown kid coming back home, play for his childhood team. That's fine. But that is literally your need. Left-handed bat that hits bombs. He's a left-handed bat. He hits bombs. And I think that would fix a ton of your problems as an organization. And they can find a way, right? Don't let them trick you into saying, there's just not enough money. No, they can find a way to get Schwarber. They're going to have to get a little bit uncomfortable. They're going to have to do some things they're not accustomed to doing. They're going to have to, work outside of the box a little bit, but they can land Kyle Schwarber. They could absolutely do it, especially when there clearly is interest in Schwarber coming back home to the Cincinnati Reds. But check out that clip on Twitter if you haven't seen it already, because I was blown away, right? Because you hear all this stuff. Oh, he's building a house here. He was a Reds fan. He wants to come here. Actually hearing him speak about it with Cincinnati media people at his, I don't know if he was at his high school, but he's wearing Middletown stuff. But it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And I kind of, my mindset changed a lot after hearing that clip yesterday. And check out Seg Dennison, I think, was first to have it on Twitter. All right, that'll do it for this edition of the show. We appreciate everyone, as always, for hanging out. Another great show, another great week. I do believe, and I probably should have checked this before we came on, I believe that there is merch out. And I'm talking about all our stuff here at Chatterbox, and I believe that is on our website. Again, probably should have checked before now. We will have an update on that tomorrow. But I believe my show, Off the Bench, Chatterbox Reds, Flying Lion Podcast, there is some gear that you can go get on the Chatterbox website. We're going to have pictures of it that we'll show on the show, and we'll certainly push it a little bit more. But check out the Chatterbox website. I believe that's all up. I know the Flying Lion stuff definitely is up here at this point. So check it out. There's some gear. There's some merch. If you're a supporter of Chatterbox Sports, we obviously appreciate you. And we've got some swag for you there on the website if you want to check that out. But we'll have more pictures. I'll have more details tomorrow and into next week there as well. But make sure you check that out on our website if you haven't done so already. Looking forward to tomorrow's show. Again, stay tuned. Follow me, obviously, as I'm not Scott Springer. I forgot to change that. We certainly thank Scott Springer for stopping by. But my name is Stone Shields, and you can find me at StoneShields_ on Twitter. We'll have an update. I'm going to talk with Nick Kirby and figure out, how we want to attack this tomorrow and into next week. I have a feeling that I'm going to get bumped up to the 10 o'clock time slot, and maybe we'll have a couple of days next week where we do a full 2 hours with me. We'll check in with Casey McAllister, see if he's got any availability. But be on the lookout on social media to see if we're at 11 tomorrow or 10 o'clock. And, of course, if you missed any parts of the show, that's fine. I understand, right? You're busy. You're working. That's what the podcast is for, wherever you get your podcasts. The Stone Shield Show. Subscribe to the podcast. Like it. Give us 5 stars. All that good stuff. We appreciate it. And we'll be back tomorrow. We'll have our college football weekend preview. We'll have our best bets of the weekend. And hopefully we'll know if Joe Burrow is playing or not there as well. But appreciate everyone as always. And until tomorrow, take care, everybody.